Sony announces release dates for Lebron James collaborations, Jim Ryan talks in the Xbox vs FTC trial day 3, Resident Evil DLC gets teased, and CD Projekt believes it was cool to hate Cyberpunk. All that and more in today's PlayStation news. Let's get to them. Sony has announced the release date for the DualSense and PS5 console cover collaboration with LeBron James, first revealed back in March when they introduced the Playmakers campaign. Both black DualSense and PS5 console cover feature LeBron James graffiti branding and will be sold at PlayStation Direct starting this July 27 for $80 and $65 respectively, or the equivalent for your region. The console cover will be available for pre-order starting this Thursday, June 29th, but only in the US, while the DualSense will be in the US plus the UK, France, Germany, Austria, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Benelux. PlayStation fans in Canada can pre-order the DualSense as well from participating retailers. Check with your local ones for more information. Next, Insomniac debuted the main theme from Spider-Man 2 during the Game Awards 10th anniversary concert in Los Angeles over the past weekend. The track is named Greater Together and is composed by John Pesano. You can listen to it now on Spotify. The Game Awards 10th anniversary concert also featured tracks from other Sony first-party games including The Last of Us and God of War. Sony published a video spotlighting Nixxes Studio, the team that helps with porting their first-party games to PC. In the video, the team talks about their role as a Sony team while also revealing they are working on more and more remasters. It's unknown if they meant helping on remasters for PS5, but it rather seems to be the work they already do on PC. Their next game will be Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, debuting for PC this July 26. Let's move to a recap of everything going on with the FTC vs Microsoft trial, including additional info and what happened on day 3, including Jim Ryan's deposition. Before day 3 there was a bunch of proof that was made public, including the fact that Microsoft was at some point interested in buying around 100 developers and publishers, including Sega, Bungie, IO Interactive, CD Projekt Red, From Software, Gearbox, Remedy, 505 Games, and more. Their strategy back in 2019 was to spend Sony out of business, as Xbox Game Studios' Matt Booty explained in an email that was exposed in the trial last week. Microsoft has said since that this was an old strategy that they are not following now, which is very hard to believe given the fact they spent $7.5 billion for ZeniMax in 2021 and now $69 billion for Activision. The email that Bethesda's Pete Hines was asked about on Thursday was also made public, where he was concerned that Activision titles would stay on PlayStation but Bethesda's were not, and even more worried about the lack of communication on Microsoft's part. Day 3 started with Jim Ryan and a pre-recorded deposition. Ryan started by saying that he believes Xbox Series has performed strong even with all the shortage issues they have both experienced, and that Xbox was more popular in the US given their games involve shooting or online multiplayer. I had the same perception back in the PS3 vs 360 era, but I must say that Xbox has a much more varied catalog now, including indies, RPGs, and more. It seems they still lack Japanese support, but at least they are working on it. In regards to Nintendo as a competitor, Ryan said that they don't see them as a competitor in the relevant market due to the Switch being less powerful and having a very different audience that enjoys Mario and Zelda, but not Call of Duty, citing that as a reason of why the franchise has not been as strong in past Nintendo platforms. Nintendo as a relevant market has been a constant debate in this trial, as the FTC wants to only take into account PlayStation and Xbox, while Microsoft wants Switch to be in that segment. I think the Switch is still a competitor to both, but it's also true that some current games are only targeted to PS5 or Xbox users. Ryan talked about acquisition, saying he expected Starfield, Redfall, and The Elder Scrolls 6 to be on PlayStation before the merger, given pretty much every Bethesda game has been multi-platform, and pointed out both Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop as time exclusives. When asked about the current exclusivity for Redfall and Starfield, he said he didn't like it, but he had no problems with it and didn't consider it anti-competitive. Speaking of not providing future dev kits if the acquisition happens, the SIE president said they could not run the risk of a company owned by a direct competitor having access to that information and would not rely on a contract for that either. He pointed out that Activision helped develop the DualSense haptic feedback as an example. On the Activision content, Ryan explained that Phil Spencer contacted him after the acquisition announcement with a list of games they were committed to keeping on PlayStation. Ryan was not that concerned with the deal until a certain email arrived in August 2022 that set the alarm bells ringing. That email is still a mystery, but Ryan said after seeing that he was worried Microsoft intended to use Call of Duty to disadvantage PlayStation in terms of performance, a buggier version, or drive PlayStation users to Xbox with Game Pass. The whole argument of a buggy or underperforming version is very dumb. The one thing I used to point out as an example of this was Microsoft making a better version of Psychonauts 2 as the game is not on PS5, but now we know this is probably Sony's fault. Ryan was asked if he would keep Call of Duty and Activision games exclusive to Xbox and PC if he was running Xbox, but he pointed out it was a hypothetical question and didn't have enough knowledge to answer. I've also pointed out in previous videos that Sony would have probably done the same if the roles were reversed, to keep some content exclusive and some content on other platforms. Game Pass was also a discussion as the Sony executive said that the business model has some challenges and Microsoft appears to be losing money on it. That he had talked with all the publishers and they unanimously do not like Game Pass because it is value destructive, that Activision CEO Bobby Kotick would have never added Call of Duty on Game Pass if the transaction wasn't completed. Ryan closed talking about the cloud gaming market, indicating the technology will become a meaningful component of how gamers access content between 2025 and 2035. Other witnesses for Day 3 included Dr. Robin Lee, an FTC economic expert who explained several models on how the market would change post-acquisition, but it was all hypothetical. Incentives from Microsoft on foreclosure or partial foreclosure with subscription services, saying he didn't believe Call of Duty will be on PlayStation for certainty, or the possibility of games blocked from rival cloud services. NVIDIA Phil Eisler, director for GeForce Now, talked about their service, how Activision games were at one point in the service during the beta, and how they are happy with the Microsoft agreements to have Xbox PC games. Lastly, Elizabeth Bailey, a Microsoft economic expert, pointed out that Call of Duty is not essential or a must-have, giving examples of Nintendo succeeding without it, how the acquisition will help Microsoft in tapping the mobile market, and discussed telemetry data from PlayStation and Xbox and how popular games were the same across markets, not only one region. I'm not a legal expert, but so far I've said that Day 1 appeared to be a quote-unquote tie, Day 2 was definitely a point for Microsoft, and Day 3 appears to be as well. I think Jim Ryan's deposition showed he's fine with the acquisition unless we know the contents of that August email. The FTC economist seems to have failed at proving his point, and both the NVIDIA and Microsoft economists supported what the Redmond company has presented so far. We'll see what happens on Day 4 today, which will have witnesses such as NVIDIA's VP Jeff Fisher, Activision's Bobby Kotick, and Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, with a closing happening on Thursday. Again, the FTC is not looking to block the deal here, but asked for more time to look into more evidence before their full trial in August, without having to deal with an already merged company, while Microsoft is looking to finalize the deal by July 18 and avoid having to pay fees and renegotiate. If the FTC is granted the injunction for the trial in August, Microsoft has said it could kill the deal completely. This is a very quick recap of everything that happened for days 2.5 and 3, but if you want to know more, check the sources in the description. Let's move from the Microsoft versus the FTC case and into the US game sales for May with the latest Circana report by Matt Piscatella. The best-selling game was obviously Zelda Tears of the Kingdom for Switch, followed by Hogwarts Legacy, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Dead Island 2, and Modern Warfare 2 completing the top 5. First-party Sony games included MLB The Show 23 right after that at number 6, and God of War Ragnarok passed the top 10 at number 16. With that, the top 5 best-selling games for 2023 so far are Hogwarts Legacy, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Modern Warfare 2, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and Resident Evil 4. As for best-selling PS5 exclusive games for 2023, we have MLB The Show at number 6, The Last of Us Part 1, God of War Ragnarok, and Forspoken passed the top 10 at number 12, 14, and 19 respectively. Total spending in games was $3.6 billion, up 9% against May last year, and it was flat against last month. The Switch was the top-selling console in both units and dollar sales for May, fueling ending PS5's 2023 streak, which during April still held onto the best console sold by dollar sales, but had already lost units lead to the Switch as well. Total hardware spending was up 56% more than last year with $338 million, both PS5 and Switch growing by 2-digit percentage. When taking into account all of 2023, PS5 still leads hardware sales in terms of both units and dollars. That contributed to year-to-date hardware spending growing by 23% compared to the same 5 months in 2022. Accessories also increased compared to 2022 by 14% for a total of $159 million, with the DualSense Edge still leading the chart in dollar sales for the month and all of 2023 so far. With all of that, the video game market in the US totaled $4.1 billion, growing by 12% against May last year. PS5 momentum slowed down in May and was expected given the high-profile release on the Switch, but it should rebound with June results given we had stuff like Street Fighter 6, Diablo 4, and Final Fantasy 16. Moving on, Capcom is celebrating its 40th anniversary with a huge milestone as the company announced they have sold around 500 million game copies globally in its history. Among their bestsellers is the Resident Evil franchise, which moved 142 million units, then Monster Hunter has sold 92 million games, and the third is Street Fighter with 49 million units. Speaking of Capcom, Resident Evil 4 was released in March, and we thought we would be getting news about the Separate Ways DLC in the publisher's Summer Game Fest event, but we didn't. However, it seems we're set to get news about it very soon, as the Steam DB list for RE4 just added 7 new achievements. There's no description about any of them, so we can confirm it's Separate Ways, but it's not that hard to figure out. My bet is to expect the announcement maybe in August, with a release in October or November. Indie developer Scavenger Studio has been hit with layoffs after their most recent project, Season: A Letter to the Future, did not meet commercial expectations. The developer shared the email with Game Industry, where CEO Amelie Lamarcky announced the layoffs, reducing size from 40 to 16 staff members. Season's: A Letter to the Future only sold 60,000 copies on PS4 and PS5, and the company also cited the current global economic context as a reason for the layoffs. Here's hoping the best for everyone affected. CD Projekt Red has made a huge turnaround for Cyberpunk 2077 after the state it launched, but the developer believes it was a trend to dislike the game. That was CD Projekt's VP of PR and Communication Mikhail Platko-Gillespie in an interview with GameIndustry.biz, where he said that he believes Cyberpunk on launch was way better than it was received, and even the first reviews were positive. Then it became a cool thing not to like it. We went from hero to zero really fast. He continued saying, "That was a tough moment, we didn't know what was happening, we knew that the game is great, yes we can improve it, yes we need to take time to do it, and we need to rebuild some stuff. That took us a lot of time, but I don't believe we were ever broken. I love CD Projekt, but it was a bad move to high performance for base last-gen consoles, as they only showed pro versions. The game also didn't run that well, at least I experienced a lot of crashes on PS5 before giving up and waiting till they fix it. If we remember, the game was also removed from the PlayStation Store for a while, and a lot of people were disappointed asking for refunds. Even if we take into account they have fixed a lot, the last-gen versions are not the best, and the most recent patches are current-gen only, so anyone who wasn't planning on upgrading in the short term was left out. I do think maybe they were treated a bit too harshly compared to other developers that put out buggy versions of their games and don't see such backlash, but anyway, no one wants to spend $60 on something they can play. Hopefully it's a lesson learned for them. The upcoming Phantom Liberty DLC is a paid expansion, but will also revamp the game completely with a bunch of free updates for all current-gen players. Alan Wake 2 is launching this October 17, but will only do so as a digital release. In an interview with Eurogamer, Remedy director Kyle Rowley explained the reason behind that decision. He said that as creatives, obviously by going digital only, it does allow them more time to polish the game, like a significant amount of week actually, because otherwise the game that goes on disc, obviously it has to be playable without a patch. Rowley continued, "We didn't want to release something that we were not proud of basically, and that we didn't want players to play. So hopefully this way we can give you a better version of the game. I think whatever Remedy's issues are, this seems more of a staggered launch, and a disc version will be released eventually." Let's go with updates and new releases. Gran Turismo creator Kazunori Yamauchi has teased a new update for Gran Turismo 7 on his Twitter. It will add 3 new cars on June 29, and nothing else is known as of recording. Expect the usual stuff here. Player First Games announced in March this year that Multiversus was going to be offline, and as of June 25th is officially shut down, running for close to a year. Back then the developer also said this was supposed to be a beta, and the game will be returning in early 2024. PixelJunk Scrappers Deluxe, the next game in the PixelJunk series from developer Q Games, will have you beating up robots and collecting trash with up to 4 friends with crossplay when it launches for PS4 and PS5 this July 27. Dead Cells is getting a free PS5 upgrade on June 29, which includes features like haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, and audio feedback. An already announced physical bundle with both the game and all DLC, including Return to Castlevania, will be out this August for PS4 and PS5. Developer Moonfish has announced the release date for Atomic's Heart's first DLC called Annihilation Instinct. It will be the first of 4 DLCs to expand the story of the main game, and also adds 2 new weapons, a new ability, and New Game Plus when it launches for PS4 and PS5 this August 2nd, priced at $40 as part of the Season Pass. Solis, an Unreal Engine 5 narrative sci-fi thriller set on Mars with claustrophobic exploration and featuring The Last of Us Troy Baker, Red Dead Redemption's Roger Clark, and World on Fire's Julia Brown will be launching this August 22nd for PS5. Bandai Namco will be holding their summer showcase during Anime Expo with a barrage of news and reveals including Naruto, Sandland, Sword Art Online, Baten Kaitos, and more. It takes place on July 1st at 4:30 PM Pacific. And those are the PlayStation stories for today. Come back on Friday for a new video, but remember to share your thoughts on any of these news in the comments below, like or dislike to let me know your feedback, check out other videos you may enjoy while you're here, and consider subscribing for more on PlayStation. Thank you so much for watching, my name is Joseph, this is Hype for Games, and let's get hype!